know that your time is valuable, so I'll get going right away. I'm not really sure that you need much of an introduction, but of course, our viewers, if they live under a rock, they may not be familiar, but I'm pretty sure that our viewers are very familiar with you as the first female governor of New York. So, if you're okay with it, I'd love to start fairly broadly. I mean, I looked at your history getting to where you are, and you could argue that you dabbled in politics, but was it your plan?
Oh, absolutely not. I think it's a rare women elected official, especially among the governors, who have a career path when they're teenagers or in college, saying, "Oh, I'm going to be a governor someday." I think for guys, they do. I think there's a lot of young men who have these ambitions. But when I was growing up, there were very few role models.
Right.
And my ambition when I was a teenager was to someday become an attorney for a senator. Maybe I could be an advisor to a senator on Capitol Hill someday is my ultimate career goal. Never ever thinking I would run for office because women didn't do that then. We were the brains behind a lot of other people and worked on policy and wrote press releases. And I did all that for other people. And so you're absolutely right that this is not something I set out to do, but it's an extraordinary privilege. It truly, truly is.
So at the same time, you have this incredible role as being governor, but you are still a mom, right? And we're all trying to walk that tightrope, walk on the balance beam, and balance it all. A lot of women are intimidated to take large roles and to be the first governor. What would you say to them?
Oh, don't hold yourselves back. I did. I did this because, as I said, my ambitions were more stunted because of the societal norms. Women were not in these roles. But when I was in my early to mid 30s, I had been very active in helping other candidates. I had run campaigns. I had, um, you know, been going to my local town board meetings for years and pushing them to do all kinds of things. I had better attendance than probably half the board members. And there was an opening on our town board, and I didn't even contemplate, putting my name up for that. And a young man just out of college, literally living at home with his parents, never had a job yet, he decides he's going to run for that town board position.
Right.
And I went back home, and I already had a couple of kids and a number of jobs. I told my husband, and he says, "Honey, why don't you do that?" And I said, what about the kids? The kids are young; they're 4 and 5 years old. And he just said, "We'll figure it out." And so I was fortunate to have a support system that allowed me to do it that some women don't have. But with that, I literally dragged my kids campaigning. I had to run 2 consecutive years because I was filling a vacancy.
Mhm.
And I will always say to women wondering if they should do this or anything else that requires a lot of time. My children who are adults now, and I'm a grandmother, each one has their own child.
Right.
I think they're my kids because of my career. They've seen women in these non-traditional roles. My daughter thinks she can do anything. She truly can. And my son is the greatest feminist in the nation because he saw the discrimination that his own mother faced. So he lifts up his wife and her career and doesn't think watching the kids is babysitting. It is your child. You are responsible for taking care of your children too. So I think despite me not being there for every milestone and missed a couple birthdays, and I'm still sorry about that, kids, but on balance, they're more civically engaged. They're socially conscious. They're better people because they were able to witness what I went through and all the fights I took on to help my community and now ultimately my state. So I'd say to women, do not hold yourselves back uh, because you can exude confidence, even if it's not something you feel naturally. And a lot of women don't.
Mm-mm.
I didn't, but it's in your head. It's not how people treat you, it's about how you treat yourself. Do you think you have the ability to do something? And if you believe in yourself, you can walk into any room and exude confidence and make people believe in you. So I love talking to young women about what's available to them and to know that your children are going to be okay if you're not there every minute, if you have a good support system. And lastly, I'll say your job is not to raise kids. Your job is to raise adults. Ultimately, they'll become adults. What kind of adults will they be based on what they see you doing? Because they're watching everything and listening to everything you say. So you can be a profound influence on your kids for the better by not holding yourself back.
I talked to a lot of moms about this, and it's so much more than a paycheck or a balance in your marriage. I mean, you've been married for well over 40 years. which is odd because you're in your 30s, right? I mean, that's shocking how you're able to,
Thank
right?
you. Thank you.
Right. No, I know. I know how to slip that in, right? That don't let the Botox on my face fool you. Uh, but but one of my biggest motivators is for my daughter and my sons, and they're for different reasons. And I have these conversations with women where I say, well, you have gifts that I don't. God blessed me in other ways. I mean, I can't lift a barbell. Go start a fitness group. Go you can design a home that's valuable to someone like me, or you can style clothes. And I think women hold themselves back still. I mean, for
Mhm.
me to say you're the first female governor, I want to talk about other things that you're good at. I want you to be the third female governor
Yeah,
of New
that's
York,
right.
right?
I do not want to be the last. I will not be the last. I said
Right.
that the day I was sworn in, that I need to stop having to be a trailblazer. It should be normalized
Right.
that women are governors and the women are CEOs of companies, or that women are in construction and women are building buildings and women are doing all kinds of things. Women are, technology leaders in big companies, small companies. My sister started a tech startup a long time ago and I helped her do that. And, I was her attorney and we were the only women in a room for a long time. And
Mhm.
it's intimidating. When you're the only woman still, it's intimidating. But again, no one can make you feel bad about yourself or uncomfortable about yourself without your permission. That was my mother's best line. And I don't give anyone permission, which is why I can handle the rough and tumble of politics. No one's going to have power over my emotions and how I feel about myself. Or if you're in a career where you feel like you're being held back by other people, just break out of it. Find something that makes you just joyful in the morning. This is not a job for me. This is a calling. And there's a lot of professions that allow women to do that. But if in your mind you think you're constrained because, the kids, need you there every second, I'm telling you, the kids are going to be okay. They really are. They're going to be fine.
There are really a myriad. I could talk to you all day about different policies, right? I want to focus specifically, obviously, on policies that may have been influenced because you are a parent, because you are a mother. And I remember what we actually reached out 2 months ago. We did a big story on the cell phone ban, right? And I was so moved. It was a monologue that you did. It was a press conference that you did where you said, I was a mom actually before I was a governor. And we could look at the timeline and you can do math. It's not that complicated. But you were pressed by, I think it was a reporter, and it was an awkward question where they said, as a parent, what if you get that one last chance to call your son or daughter at school? And you handled it really eloquently. And I want to start with that policy. Why you were motivated. Have you seen really some of the damages with kids having access to cell phones and taking them to school?
Absolutely, absolutely. And my kids are a little bit older, so it was not normalized that you weren't allowed to have a cell phone in school. But certainly, my nieces and nephews and a lot of young people that I'm engaged with, they think that you're supposed to have a cell phone attached to your hand all day long while you're in school. And it has taken our young people, especially teenage girls, to a very dark place because there's companies, social media platforms, and algorithms that are designed to bombard you all day long to keep you addicted. It's really an addiction.
Mhm.
And a lot of it's negative and it leads to dark thoughts or bullying from kids in your classroom, or that sense of being ostracized. Like, I sat down, I did roundtables with young people for a solid year before I announced this policy. I wanted to hear from them. And one young woman, we're sitting in the school library, says, we just can't put them down. Like we might be missing girls getting together in the bathroom or planning something for Friday night or mocking me out and I need to know about it. And I can't miss out. It's like the FOMO was so intense and they were so stressed out. And she says, you've got to save us from ourselves. And I said, I will. I'm a mom. I'm going to help you. And what I had to overcome was a lot of parents who had that fear you just mentioned, that if there's an active shooter in the school, and there's far too many horrible instances like that. I remember that when my kids were young, Columbine had just happened, and it just sends chills down your spine to think something could happen to your child in a safe setting like a school. But what changed my mind, and I share this with a lot of parents, law enforcement told me the last thing you want, if there is a crisis in the school or an active shooter in the building, you don't want your child to have a cell phone, whether texting you or their phone goes off and the assailant, the perpetrator, knows where your child is, or they start sending text messages to their friends or videoing it. They said their attention has to be 100% on the teacher in the front of the classroom who is trained to get them out of that situation and protect their lives. So I hear that. I brought law enforcement to many of the forums I did, let them hear it from their sheriff or their commissioner of police, let them hear it directly from those who know. And I think that calmed down a lot of parents. But aside from that crisis, some parents just didn't want to let go. They want to well, it's more of the kids are okay with parents letting go, but the parents are so attached. I understand it's a deep bond you have, especially when they're going off to school, little kindergartner and first grader, but it's not healthy for them to be denied the chance to have personal relationships with real people in the classrooms or in the lunchroom or in phys ed because those buildings have been silent for too long. Kids are not talking in the halls. They're not making connections. They're not having friendships. They're not emerging from high school fully functioning adults who know how to have conversations and look you in the eye. We announced this last summer, just this summer, and put it in place this September. Elizabeth, I have to tell you, I was stunned at how positive this rollout was. I thought there'd be a lot of opposition, and because a lot of people oppose this in the front end. And the articles I'm reading now about not just the teachers who are thrilled that the kids are paying attention to them again, and I think our kids are going to end up with much better academic outcomes, literally in 1 year from now. Also, the kids are saying themselves, I didn't have a friend in person. I'm making friends in school. Kids are coming over to my house to play afterward. And they're bringing board games and cards to play with during the recess and in study hall. They're just doing old school things. But the main thing is that they're being kids again. They're having these human connections that this technology for the last decade has robbed them of. So one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah, well, and I think I'm listening to what you're saying because you were saying, my kids are a little bit older. I didn't have, you didn't have cell phones with them. My kids are a little bit younger, and the pendulum is swinging, right? So I don't have the older teens that, I have a niece and nephew, for example, that grew up, in my opinion, in this cell phone generation. The pendulum is now swinging, where hopefully I can raise kids just the way that you raised yours and the way that I was raised. For me as a parent, it does feel as if I'm drinking out of a water hose sometimes when it's not just the phone, it's not just the social media, it's the algorithm, it's the streaming, it's the chat bots, where I almost can't keep up. And I hear these stories about young people, and there are alarming percentages of young people that where young males are not approaching females or other whatever it is. They're not even approaching others because they've already ingrained themselves into this world that doesn't exist. It exists to them, it exists on the internet, but it's not real world. And so a lot of parents are saying, what is being done? Are there policies that are being implemented to protect them? Because as a parent, there's only so much I can do, it feels like.
We absolutely are in New York State. We're nation leading in this space because, again, bringing my experience as a mom to this and seeing what is happening to children all over our state. I mean, these are all, I view it as my kid. Every person in this state is part of my family. That's how I approach this job. And I want to make sure they're safe. So we have legislation that I've signed that requires that with respect to chatbots, the people, those AI companions where they're developing friendships with something that's not real, we have notifications that'll go out that tell you periodically that this is not a real person. Like literally, that is messaging that the companies will be required to do. We also have the knowledge that kids aren't sleeping during the night. They're communicating with people all around the world. My nieces were always, I said, who is she talking to at 3 a.m. on a school night?
Right.
Oh, she's got friends over in some other country where the time zone is different. We stop notifications from going to young people during the overnight hours because kids get 250 notifications a day.
It's a dopamine, right?
They're not sleeping. So we have allowed parents to be able to control this, telling the companies you have to make this available for kids under the age of 18. We've done a lot, and also banned addictive algorithms. You cannot have algorithms that are bombarding our kids. Their parents or they have to give permission for this information to come to them. So no more unsolicited algorithms that are designed to just hold them captive, as I mentioned before. So we're always looking to try and stay ahead of this, but at minimum catch up with where the technology is and what the threats are to our kids and their mental health, and always looking for new ideas. It is, I will say this, I know it is so hard to be a parent these days with all those challenges and threats. I mean, it's hard enough to raise kids just under any circumstances.
Mhm.
The affordability issue, how expensive it is, how you find childcare. I had to leave a job I loved in Washington because I couldn't find childcare. Something I couldn't afford. I left a job, and now we're down to one income. And my husband worked for the government. You know, I had to go out and go to big box stores and buy lots and lots of diapers and stock up on formula and get some clothes and hand me downs and all this. So parents today, they've got the double whammy. They've got the assault from technology and all these outside forces that are trying to capture your children's attention and monetize it, in addition to the normal stresses of being a parent. And it is so much. And I'm so empathetic for families in New York. And that's why I'm out there fighting for them every single day.
Well, and you do, like you said, it's a double whammy. And also, I did get you to say FOMO, and so I understand the FOMO thing because I have a preteen daughter, and sometimes I get FOMO for her. And I
Yeah.
don't think it's weird for women over 40 to say
Yeah.
the word FOMO. So thank you for normalizing that.
Yeah.
Uh, you brought up childcare. We've also covered that extensively because there are women who are leaving the workforce right now. We just read an article where there's women are more educated in some instances, but they're not represented in the boardrooms because they don't have childcare. I mean,
Well,
one of the biggest points of contention for my marriage, and I would argue that I have a relatively healthy marriage.
mm,
Is who is going to do this? Who is going to take
yeah.
care of who? I have a trip to New York. I have a trip to DC, and we're looking at New Mexico. Is that the answer? New Mexico, for our viewers who are not familiar, just and I think it was November 1st, passed this universal child care where obviously the state's going to be subsidizing as long as you meet the requirements of child care.
Mhm.
Is that feasible? It has to be obviously left up to the states, right? It's not, that's not a
Yeah.
federal issue.
No,
But
states have to have the resources to do
right.
this. But I'm meeting with the mayor-elect of New York City, Zohran Mamdani. I think a lot of people noticed the big election we had. He ran on affordability issues, as I have done, but also on childcare. And I think we can get to it. I think we can get to affordable childcare for all, a universal childcare. I already announced that last year. I have spent $7 billion in state dollars to try and build up our support system because you can't tell parents that we're going to have a slot for every child, but not have the slots and have the buildings and the people trained in the profession. So we need to get more people who want to be people in this career path and train them, but also make sure that we have either it's more facilities in homes or in bricks and mortar buildings. We have to have the capacity. So our first step is to build that out, but also to start wading into this. I mean, we have in the city of New York universal 3K and 4K. So the kids, parents in the city already have their kids, being educated, but all simultaneously being watched during those ages. We're looking at 2-year-olds now. What does 2-year-old care look like? And how can we start taking steps toward that? And I have to do the whole state, not just the city. So it's about $15 billion to do the state. It's a lot of money. It's my entire reserves, but I have the ambition to do it. We'll find a path forward. And so, yes, I want parents in New York State to know that we've got your back. We know that the biggest drivers of cost are either your mortgage, if you're fortunate to have a home, which a lot of young people don't have anymore starting a family, or your rent, childcare right up there, and your utilities and all these other drivers of costs and stress for families. If we can tackle at least one of those, I think that'd be really important for them to know that we are open for families to thrive in our state.
Yeah, it's like people across the world forget that it's New York State and other boroughs, right? You're like, wait a second, this is a fairly large. Okay, so I
Oh,
I, I want to be respectful of your time. I'm wrapping it up, but you brought up the mayor. It's a that's a divisive question, right? I mean, were you surprised? I know you endorsed him. Were you surprised when he won?
I think the surprise was the primary. That was unexpected. That was the pollsters were way off on that. And my job is to make things work. This is not about egos. Historically, the governor and the mayor of New York are always fighting, and who gets credit for what, and who does the press conference an hour before the other. I mean, that people don't want that. They want people that they vote for to work together. And I've done that with the current mayor. I'm going to do it with the next mayor. And I don't have to agree with them on you know a lot of policies. There's many I disagree with, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to not get up every day and figure out how I can help him be successful, because I also represent 8 million New York City residents who need their governor to have their backs as well. So I'm willing to cooperate, collaborate, find a path forward, and make sure that New York City succeeds as well. So I'm not worried about it. There's a lot of hysteria around this, but like a mom would say, we're gonna be just fine. Let's calm down. We'll make it work. We're okay.
Okay, but how do you feel about just Representative Stefanik just came out and said she was going to run against you. You've had a fairly successful, I mean, a successful term so far, but you have to fight for it, right?
We sure do. Yeah.
You have to fight for it every day, and you've got a whole plate of responsibilities, but you also have to win this time next year.
That's right. That's right. That's just the reality of it all. And I knew that going into this. I've had elections 16 times, and I've served in every level of government there is, from Congress to lieutenant governor to local government, county government. I view it as a privilege. I love what I do because I can have a real impact on people's lives, particularly families, and bring the perspective of my own life and the struggles that my family and my parents had to endure to raise. My parents had 6 kids. So I say, bring it on. I'm battle
Not afraid.
tested.
You're not afraid of
No,
her?
no, I'm fearless. I've been through so many challenges. This is how you get the job, and so I'm willing to show the contrast between my policies that put families first and someone who has voted with Donald Trump 100% of the time, and many of those policies are hurting New Yorkers as we speak. As we speak, taking away health care, even trying to use food as a political weapon against people during the government shutdown. We didn't have to deny people food on their tables. It was tragic what was happening over the last month. So there's a real record against her to run on, and so that's what it'll be, a lively debate. But I'm
Well,
ready
I've
for.
seen you already, both of you. I mean, I think as a political junkie and as like watching two women, I mean, listen, for someone like me, I mean, it's stimulating. You're both obviously you're very accomplished women, right? So to watch you two go head to head is very interesting. So it's interesting to hear that you're not afraid. You're ready for it.
No, no, I embrace the challenge. Let's bring it on.
All right, Governor, I'm grateful for your time, very much so. Thank
Uh,
you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Good talking to you.